want to do it.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone, to tonight's meeting. First on the agenda are the student representatives report. Student representative report.
Okay, so this is, yeah. Okay.
Make sure you're talking to that.
Yeah, we're in the middle of Winter Carnival, and right now we're planning on a full day assembly on Friday for fun things like games and like school spirit. But currently the seniors are winning, which is not unexpected. On March 10th, there's a chili and chowder cook-off for the music programs. There's a senior lasagna dinner this Friday from 5:30 to 6:30. The play, its opening night is Friday as well. Nathan Delmar is holding a benefit ski race at Kent Hill on Sunday. The admission is $15, and it all goes to Good Shepherd Food Bank. 8th grade parent night was February 16th. A lot of parents showed up, and it was a huge success. The Gap trip leaves this month in 9 days.
Wow.
Nordic was first in the state for states, and Alpine was third. For debate qualifiers for nationals, Miranda Cook comprised 2/3 of the qualifying teams for nationals, which is pretty outstanding. Our team's relatively small.
Yeah.
Understanding Sacrifice is meeting with a George Washington professor. And the girls basketball team won the sportsmanship award. That's all for this meeting.
With all that snow that came down and all those snow days, a lot of stuff happened. Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Citizens' comments. Seeing none, we'll go to any additions or adjustments to the agenda of the board or the superintendent.
I have none.
Any board members? Okay. Number one, approval of minutes of February 1st. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Consideration of out-of-state travel to Boston, Mass. On May 11th through 12th.
Travel to Boston, Mass.
Is there a second? Any discussion?
6240, Boston the activity, who pays that?
6240.
That's 26 times $240.
Oh,
Or 26?
the families are paying.
Okay?
Is that leaving, are there any students being left out because of that additional cost?
Not that I'm aware.
I hear you.
And Mr. Gower isn't here tonight. Kristen, do you know? Ma'am?
Any other questions?
No. No.
All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Consideration of out-of-state travel and out-of-country travel to Washington, D.C., and then to Paris, France, Normandy, France on June 17th.
Make a motion that we accept that as written. There's only 2 people going, I believe.
Yes.
Looks like 1 student and 1 chaperone.
One teacher. Yeah.
Yeah. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Motion passed.
How did that person get accepted? That's what I'd like to know. I read the letter, very nice letter. The
There's
only
some-
person in the school that had any interest in Normandy?
No, there were several people that, several students that wrote essays, and there was a committee that selected the essay that they felt best matched the purpose of the
The trip? Okay.
trip.
All right.
All right, acceptance of donations.
Make a motion that we accept the donations.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Report from participation fees, late bus study group. Who is doing that?
That's me.
Wendy.
I've been nominated. I passed out Harry Lanfear's notes of the meeting, and it was pretty unanimous of the people who were there that the parents would like to not include an activity fee this year for a wide range of reasons, which a lot of them are listed here. It was also the after-school bus, the late bus was talked about and considered, and it was decided that we do not need a late bus at this time because participation numbers have remained steady without having a late bus. Now, we all know in a perfect world, it'll be great to not have participation fees, but we haven't gotten to the nitty-gritty of our budget yet. So I did ask everybody for a Plan B. And everyone agreed that if it came down to cutting the arts activities and sports or paying a participation fee, that the parents would pay the activity fee versus getting rid of any of the activities or sports.
Any questions?
Is that what you think too, Kelly, since you were there?
Yes.
Any questions or discussion about this? Okay. Request for exception to nepotism policy. There's a letter in the packet.
Doesn't tell you who the person is or what they're going to be doing, so.
This is a request from a board member who has a family member that lives in the same household that would, has been substituting, would like to continue substituting.
So she's on the payroll today.
No.
So that isn't a true statement you just
Well,
made.
it's, yes, it is.
If she subbed recently.
Another fake news story, huh?
No. As we talked about the last time this came up, we are in need of substitutes.
Right.
So,
I have no objections to it. You need a motion on that? I make a motion that we accept it.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, unanimous. Okay. Acceptance of resignation due to retirement, June 2017, elementary librarian Janet Adelberg. There's a letter in your folder.
So why don't we can do both of them at the same time. We make a motion that we accept the resignation with regret for Janet and also Paula Weisberger.
Anyone want to second that? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor of accepting those resignations with regret? Thank you.
Okay.
Now, Budget workshop.
So we still haven't received any information on the insurance increase, so it's still, 10% increase is still included in our budget. We did receive a preliminary ED 279, which includes 48 changes requested by the governor to the pass system. According to this preliminary, which we really expect to change as things proceed with the legislature, our subsidy has been decreased by $228,268.21. So we're hoping that this is the very worst-case scenario and that our final subsidy numbers will not represent such a significant decrease. But we have to plan on this larger projected decrease at this present time. This is what we have from the state, so. Tonight, we conclude our administrative budget request reports, and remember that these are original request budgets, and they're based on the best-case scenarios. The administrators will continue to work on their budgets in order to provide supports for students and to be fiscally responsible to the citizens of RSU 38, which is our goal. So Al McGregor is going to speak first on Cohen extracurricular activities.
Curricular. Good evening. Currently, we have at the high school and middle school, we're offering 56 Cohen extracurricular programs. At the middle school, we have 20 activities. We have 3 non-athletic activities. We have the math team, the play, and the yearbook. Math team draws about 6 to 8 kids. The yearbook, play, we've had approximately 25 kids sign up this week for the next month that they'll be doing rehearsals, and we'll be having a play early April. And then there's also the yearbook. There are 17 athletic events that we offer for the 8th and 7th graders, and how the middle school sports work is the team sports like basketball, soccer, baseball, softball. We have an 8th grade team and a 7th grade team. So 8th graders are on the 8th grade team. If we don't have enough 8th graders, we can bring 7th graders up. And then same thing with the 7th grade team. We have the 7th graders, and if there's not enough, some 6th graders can try out for the team as well. This year at the middle school, in the fall, we had 83 students participate in the athletic events, which was about 30%. And this winter, we had 94 students for 34%. At the high school, we currently have 36 activities offered. We have 5 non-athletic and 31 athletic at the high school. And in the fall, we had 140 students participate in athletics, which was 38% of the student body. And then we had 60 students also participating in speech, math, and the musical. So we had about 50% of the kids involved in the fall activities at the high school this year. This winter, we had 124 students involved with the athletic programs for 34%. This year, and that's just a brief overview of what we offer here. This year in my budget, one of the things that we would like to add back in is the girls and boys 7th grade soccer team. In 2012, we cut the 7th grade teams for budgetary reasons, and plus the league that we play in, the Capital Area League, a lot of the schools had done the same thing and they cut the programs. And some of the schools are now starting to implement the 7th grade soccer teams back in this year, and that could give an extra 25 boys, 25 girls an opportunity to play. So again, this fall we had 30% at the middle school, not meaning that many of the 6th graders could not participate. By adding the 7th grade in, we can get some of the numbers back up. For example, in 2010, 2011, right before we made the cut, we had 41% of the middle school participating, and even going back to 2008, there was 49%. So this, adding this back in would just give the kids a little bit more opportunity to get involved. And the budget proposal, what we'd be looking at is approximately $4,900 for salary, benefits, and officials. So.
Is that one team?
Two.
With both?
One
Okay.
boys, one girls.
Okay.
this in stereo, Al? I could-
That'd be great, Mac.
Question, what schools have brought it back, the 7th grade?
Coney's been talking about doing it. I believe Halldale is having it back. Monmouth. I'm not sure about Winthrop or not. I'm not sure what direction they're going in. But we're also having another meeting again tomorrow, and I'm just going to confirm with everybody again who's looking at bringing it back. It's the last meeting, probably a month or two ago. I had asked the question to the ADs, because I said I was going to be presenting this if it looked like the teams would be coming back, so. There were some 7th graders that did participate on the 8th grade team this year. Yeah, I think that, well, actually with the one team, I think the coach kept close to 30 kids on the team, so it was not a lot of playing time for a lot of the kids for 45-minute game.
So it's only 2 teams is going to equal 276 students?
No, 2 teams, putting
It
2
says,
teams.
right here, it says projected number of students to be served.
Well, that's the middle school. It's projected to the 8th grade, 7th grade, 6th grade. It will serve all of them. That's the enrollment.
It doesn't serve all of them, it only serves the 2 teams that you're adding.
276 kids, the 8th graders and 7th graders and 6th graders. That's who it would be serving.
Huh?
The
Not all of them are going to be participating.
Yeah. So it doesn't serve anybody.
Any other questions for Al?
Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
One more.
As far as, you have an idea of, I guess it kind of goes to the school and the participation fee. Do you have a ballpark figure? Sorry. Do you have a ballpark figure of how much it actually costs to participate in the different activities you do?
I don't have the numbers here with me broken down for each. There's an approximate chart that I used like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but I don't have that chart with me here.
And the other thing I'd be curious to know is, just in my experience, how much, do you regulate the number of extra things that the coaches ask their teams to buy or something? Does everything go through you?
Yes, there's the activity account. So like we don't have the money in the budget for uniforms and stuff. So sometimes teams will use the Awesome Bears
Yep.
to purchase uniforms, or sometimes they'll do fundraising and stuff. But there is forms that they have to fill out before doing the fundraising.
I guess more to the fact of like, the coach will say, or I don't even know if it comes from the coach, but there'll be like a team dinner. There'll be a fee for that. There'll be a Secret Sister program. There'll be a fee for that. I'm just wondering, does all that stuff go through you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Al? Thank you.
So the next topic is operations and maintenance. We have been working on this budget to identify projects that can be slated for FY-19 in order to decrease this proposal. So we are working on it. It shows a very large increase, but just so you know, we are working on this. So, and the changes will be presented at a following meeting. But this is Kurt Morse, our Director of Operations, and he's going to present his budget.
Thank you. As you all have the list in front of you, the projects for next year, some of the projects that I really believe that we need to move forward with is we want to do cold patching and crack filling in all of the schools. The driveways are really in need of desperate repair. We've got potholes and the cracks are up to 3 or 4 inches in all of the schools, and I've got a lot of pictures of that if anyone would like to see any of that. We have on that first list, Manchester, we had put $3,500 in there to seal the floor and the walls and install some doors. The company that did the cleaning actually sealed the floors and the walls for us. This was my initial swag at it, but we still have to install the fire-resistant sheetrock in the basement between the upstairs and downstairs. And we have to put in 2 fire-rated doors for that basement. So that's why that is still on there, to finish up that basement after we got done. Mount Vernon had requested replacement of hallway carpet last year, and that got dropped. And I've got that back on again for Mount Vernon. I have looked at it. That's one thing that we're talking about as we're trying to look at, do we really need to do some of these projects this year? I know that they requested it last year. I've looked at the carpet. It does have wear on it, but it could go another year, and that's something that could be, that we might negotiate, of just not dropping it totally, but pushing it out another year. They have a lot of mortar and bricks. Their building is built with mortar and bricks on the outside, and a lot of that mortar is falling out between the bricks and around the edges of the building. So we've asked for supplies for that, and we want to do the repair ourselves to try to get that repaired.
Excuse me, Kurt, some people may be wondering what the Cs and the Ss at the,
Okay, C means to the right. That C means as a contractor. We're putting that in there as a contractor to do it. And the S means that we're asking for supplies for us to do that repair, the maintenance people. So then you drop down to Reed Field. Reed Field has an underground tank, and right now on there, when I came aboard here, there were some estimates given to us by Siemens to remove those tanks. And that number that you have there is $60,000. And I can't put that out to bid yet because we haven't decided that we're going to do it, but I have asked for an estimate with some local contractors, and I got an estimate price right now to have the tanks removed and the holes filled, loomed and seated, and the estimate I have is $4,130. So that's hugely different from the quotes that I had handed to me when I came aboard. So I still would look at that when we get ready and put that out to bid, but I'm thinking it's going to be around $5,000 for each one of those tanks. There's one in Mount Vernon and one in Reed Field. Go ahead.
How's the EPA involved in this, or are they?
Yes, I've contacted them. I have all the paperwork filled out. What I have to do is turn the paperwork in. They send someone out. I have to turn it in within 10 days of the removal of the tank. They come out and do an inspection, and then we remove the tank. If removing that tank, we happen to see any oil or oil has got into the ground, I call the DEP, and they take care of the cleanup. They do not have to come out and re-inspect unless we see any oil contamination or there's still any oil in the tank that spills out when we're removing it.
you had mentioned that the inspection dates for these tanks these are due to come out
They were due to come out 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
And they actually sent me a letter and wanted them removed for June 1st, and I asked for a 30-day extension so that we could get it into the budget to have them removed, because we don't have it in the budget this year.
Did you have another question?
I think, all set.
So wouldn't it be wise to put this thing out to bid so we have?
Oh, I will put it out to bid.
Yeah, but so that we get that number reduced so it don't look so bad?
Well, the number right now I have from a local contractor is he has said an estimate of $4,130 per tank.
So why don't we lower it on this page?
We didn't have the number when this was sent out.
Right.
So I can be clear, these tanks have to be removed. Is
Yes,
that
they
what
do.
you're saying?
Yes, they do.
Perfect.
Any other questions on the tanks? Okay, so, and then at Reed Field, we've had a lot of water problems up there, and I guess those water problems began before I came on board. We did put some small expansion tanks up there, and then when I came on board, the decision was made that we were going to put a new well pump in last summer. So they came to put the well pump in, and I kind of questioned because they didn't come to put the well pump in till later in the summer. The whole period of time that I was here, I started in June, we didn't have any well issues, and the pump was pumping fine. So I kind of questioned why we were putting a well pump in. And that was the determination last year, that we needed a well pump because we kept running out of water. So we did install the well pump as planned, and right off the bat, as soon as school started, we started running out of water again. And I don't believe that it is a well or a well pump problem. I believe that our expansion tanks aren't big enough. What happens is when you get a major use of water in that school, when all the kids go to the bathrooms to flush, when they're going on a field trip, it happens, when the kitchen starts up, all of the kitchen dishwashers, and the kids are coming back in from recess and going to the bathroom, we seem to have a dip in water. It's because we only have 2 100-gallon holding tanks, and those are partially pressurized, so you really don't have 100 gallons in them. And it sucks those dry, and then the 22 gallons a minute that the pump puts out, it can't keep up with the demand and to try to fill those tanks. We shut the well off for 5 to 10 minutes, and it recovers and fills the tank back up, and we're all set. So the reason it says slash holding tank is I'm going to get Goodwin or Rolf Well Drilling involved in what we have already done and what their suggestion is of the moving forward. And like I said, I believe that we don't have large enough expansion tanks. I put $13,000 as an estimate in case we ended up having to drill a well, but again, I don't believe that because that well recovers immediately when we shut it off and give it a minute to recover. So if it was a well problem, we wouldn't recover. We had probably one of the driest summers last summer, and when that well would recover within 10 minutes, that's not telling me that we have a problem. We measured the well, we had 140 feet of water, so it wasn't telling me that we have a well issue. We have a expansion tank issue, but I want to talk to some contractors that do that for a living. We were doing the work this summer with a local plumber, which was working on it for the last couple of years with the issue. But now I'd like to work with a well company that can come in and look the situation over. Go ahead.
So how often is the well running out of water? I mean, you talking a monthly thing, a weekly thing?
Sometimes, as soon as school started in September, it was sometimes twice or 3 times a week. But it would be just for a few minutes. Actually, the first few times it happened, I would tell them to shut off the main line, and by the time I drove from here to the school, it had already recovered and filled the tanks.
Right, thank you.
Thanks. Anything else on the wells? On the well?
The other thing, that when you open up that well, you might want to look at the veins on the well, because that might just be a vein problem, not a pump problem. You don't need they go down and open up those veins again.
Well, if we need to, but right now, what I'm saying is we're recovering 140 feet of water in 10 minutes, and it
That's pretty
pumps
good to me.
22 gallons. Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I said that's pretty
Okay.
darn good.
Yeah, it is. So if we go down to Wayne, a couple of big things out there is, it was brought to my attention by the principal out there that we have 6 fire doors out there leaving from the classrooms. And those fire doors swing in, they don't swing out. And it's a lot of small children there trying to get out those doors, and they open very hard. By code, there's supposed to be a crash bar, and the door is supposed to swing out. I took the fire marshal out there and talked to him about it, and so I've got that in there to change those doors to be a swing-out door with a crash bar on the fire exits for those classrooms. And they had a heating problem, again, when I took over existing from last year, where they have a ramp coming down from the new addition, and that's all radiant heat under the floor. And there's a control problem with it, and every once in a while it goes out of control, and the floor actually gets so hot that that pad that is there started to bubble. And the kids were actually getting, their feet were really, really hot, and they asked me to come out and take a look at it. I had 2 different contractors go out and look at it with me. The company that owns the actual heating system controls. It's a proprietary system, and at this point in time, I haven't been able to get anybody from that company involved. There aren't a lot of them in Maine, but I have talked to both Siemens and Mechanical Services. They both have given me a price to change the controls and the three-way valve out, and we went in and checked some things and found some loose wires. I really haven't had any big issues with it to say that it was an emergency, but my emergency plan was if we needed to put a manual three-way valve in, we could have had that done for $500 to $800 this winter if we started having the problems that we were having. But what I'm going to do again is to go back and go through the entire control system and see if we can purchase control parts or if it's intuitive to us to change those control parts to a different system. Both Siemens and Mechanical Services have offered that to us. This was $8,000 with Siemens' offer to also put it online so that I could control the heat from here like I do all the other schools. But Mechanical Services, for a lot less money, offered me the same thing, and it would be a online system that I could use from this school, but it would not be locked into Siemens or Siemens agreement. So if I do change controls, I'm strongly looking at Mechanical Services controls. Now, Wayne siding, the siding on Wayne in two sections has got a lot of rot on the bottom of the building, and I have to repair that section of rot, and out front, the pillars, the actual cement in the front of the school has dropped, and around the edges of the pillars, and one classroom where the snow builds up against it has got rot on the side of the building. So I'm asking for money to do that repair, supplies, if we were going to do the repair ourselves. The actual cement I have written down as getting a contractor, and the loading dock and the front entrance steps cements need to be repaired. They're broken up and they're getting to the point where they are a safety issue. Any questions on Wayne? Okay, the middle school. We have a control skid down there that controls two water pumps, and those pumps supply all the water to both the middle school and the high school. And again, as I took over, there was a lot of issues with those control pumps burning up contactors, and they run and they stop and they run and stop. I had 3 contractors come in and take a look at that. We got it so that it was not cycling like it was every few minutes and banging that contactor on and off. But we do have a problem with those pumps, and they are fluctuating. It will get up to, just like your home pump, it will get up to 60 PSI. It'll shut off, but it drops right back to 30. And that is the controls on the pump and the valving itself. All 3 contractors said it's obsolete, it's old, it's hard to get parts. If you rebuild them, they're questioning whether or not the rebuild would be sufficient, and they are not energy efficient. We're spending a lot of money running those motors continuously, and we have old contactors. So the price that I got 3 prices from 3 contractors, and they went from $29 to $29 to $35 to $59,000 for that. And that's an entire skid, energy efficient, with soft drives on it that would maintain, and they would take a lot less electricity. So basically, they'd pay for themselves in a few years just by changing them out. And then we have, for those of you who don't know, we got rid of the modulars this year, and we moved the alt-ed kids down to the middle school. And when we first did that, we started looking at putting some stairs on the back of that school. There's a lot of traffic that goes down over the bank, and it's a lot of the kids that play sports, and it's a very, very steep bank, and they run down the grass, and they actually had a little beaten path. So we looked at putting stairs there, and we looked at pressure-treated stairs. We looked at steel stairs. We looked at putting concrete stairs there. Concrete stairs were like $40,000. Steel stairs, we got a price for $22,000 to have the stairs built. They bring them here, and then we put them into place, and that's why that's under supplies, because we would buy those stairs and install them. Again, if the budget is really tight this year, we have got through this winter with the kids going through the school, the teachers that have to go back and forth down there to work with those kids. I haven't heard of any complaints or anyone being late for class or being a problem, but it is a safety concern. I'd like to see some steps built for the back of that school. So that is in my budget, but it is something that if the budget is really, really tight and we need to start looking at things, that might be something that we might have to wait another year for those steps. Any questions on that? Okay. At the high school, we have a lot of damaged lockers. If you go up and you look at the damaged lockers, and they're very, very expensive. And what I looked at for a plan, and the reason it says start replacing lockers, is those lockers are $240 a piece. And there's a lot of lockers in this school that are stove up, but there's a lot that aren't in bad shape. So I was going to put this in my 5-year plan where we were going to start changing out some lockers each year. And when we took a section of lockers out, we would turn around and take the parts and pieces from those lockers and maybe repair some of the other lockers to get us through a 5-year plan to replace those lockers. The new lockers, when I say they're $240, they're actually $210 for a locker exactly like we have, but for $240 I can get a split locker that's a little bit wider so that you can have 2 lockers in each area, and it actually would be big enough for the kids to put a duffel bag in or something. So that's why I was trying to spread this cost out over a period of years to try to get those lockers replaced. And then, go ahead.
The new bleachers?
Okay, the bleachers. Again, I was told by the people that inspect the bleachers that they were not code compliant. I got a confirmation today that they still are not code compliant. I'm talking with Ed Ants from Maine School Management. I think this, again, nobody other than the inspector has said that they're going to need to be replaced. He did tell me that he sends a report to the state, and the state gave us 10 years to replace the bleachers, and we were in year 14. Now, my immediate concern was what is the compliance that we're not, okay? We do not have walkways up and down the stairs, so people go across at an angle and there is no walkway. So we actually had talked about putting a walkway by putting some tape and some stuff. I actually talked to Ed about that today. The problem is you're really not supposed to be walking on the seat part, so you would have to remove in the walkway the seat part. They are not ADA accessible bleachers, that's another thing, and they're supposed to be handrails. Looking at the bleachers down at the middle school, it almost looks like they retrofitted them, and I haven't dug in that deep, but the bleachers look identical to the ones we have up here, but it looks like somebody has gone in and put a retrofit on those by putting a walkway and putting the railings in ADA accessible. So I haven't looked into that yet, but I'd like to look and see, because these bleachers are very rugged bleachers, and a lot of the newer bleachers today, even Ed says they aren't as rugged as the bleachers that we used to have. The steel and the wood on our bleachers is in really, really good shape. They're just not code compliant. So I'm going to see if there's someone out there that actually can retrofit and see if maybe we can get our bleachers retrofit. Okay, so now we're down to the central school itself. The tennis court was on last year. I did try to get that tennis court scheduled, and again, if it makes it this year, the problem I'll probably run into that I ran into last year is by the time we approve our budget, the people that do tennis courts are booked for the year. And they actually told me that they couldn't even get me in this spring if it had still been in my budget. But we ended up using some of that money towards all the issues that we've had at Manchester and other things. So I'm putting it back on there again to try to get that tennis court taken care of. And I have looked at it, and it is in pretty rough shape and could use a new surfacing. Now, I had originally, again, that was a swag. As I noticed when I took over, the sediment pond, as you come in the driveway, you see that pond. What that is that's a pond that takes all of our sediment and all our runoff and puts it into, you'll see drains out here, and those are drain pits, and the sand and stuff goes in those, and then it runs down to that sediment pond, and that's a collection for that, as well as the water. Well, as I drove up and down this driveway, I started seeing that I have trees growing in there now. I have cat and nine-tails. If you go walk up to the pond, you'll see that it's mucky on the edges. That's supposed to be water in there, and that's why there's hydrants down there. That's our fire protection. And that pond has never been dredged, according to the staff that I have here, said we've never done that. We've never done the clean out of any of the traps that we have out here in the yard where all the sand gets. So what I originally said that I had taken a estimate, and I asked a couple local contractors, and they won't even give me a price because they want to see prints and they want to understand it, and they want to be able to digest it. Well, one of the things that I'm thinking I'm going to change on that, again, I know that the budget is tight, but I'd like to have somebody inspect it with me this year, get the prints out, and I'd like to have all of the pits cleaned out and all the sand out of the piping so that we can see what we have. I was going to try to get out there this winter and drill a hole so that I could put a sounder down and see how much water I have and how much sludge I have. I haven't got out there yet, but I've also been told be careful walking out there because it is moving water that goes into that every time we get rain. But right now, I'd like to, again, I'll probably drop that price down so that we can just get it inspected this year and put a plan together for the following year for that sediment pond. And then the forest management plan is supposed to be updated every so many years, and again, we're a few years past that, and they came and saw me this year, and they really wanted to update that plan for us this year, but we didn't have it in the budget, so I've put that in the budget to try to get a forest management plan. And we lost a lot of trees with the microburst this spring, and we actually had to have someone come in and cut them out of the trails and clean up, and we lost a big tree down by the football field. But I feel that we really need to look at our management plan, and maybe there's some things out there, a lot of dead trees or a lot of trees that need to be cleaned up. So I'd like to renew that forest management plan. Any questions on those? Okay, transportation. The transportation, we really need to do some, it says cold patch, but it's more grading. A lot of that is a dirt driveway up there where they park the buses, and out front there is a small area of tar in front of the main office that Blenny has. But my main concern is to try to get all the potholes and all the roughness out of that by having that graded. And you'll see on here, and I jumped over some of them because I had highlighted them. There's several on here that say roof repair, and some of those prices are pretty big. But what I was trying to do, in a couple of these, we were going to try to do some of the roofing ourselves. But the roofs, actually, according to GE Roofing, which is the ones that maintain most of our roofing, they're actually telling us that none of them are due till next year. But I went on every roof that we have out here, and I walked every part of it, and these roofs are in really bad shape. These shingles on these roofs. That's why I put them on this year, thinking that I'm trying to be proactive and get these roofs repaired before we start having a lot of leaks and problems. But can they go another year? They're saying they can, and I'm saying that, we're really pushing it, but we probably could get by another year. But I would want to go up and maybe this summer, if we're going to not do those, at least go up and replace some of the shingles that look like they could cause us an issue. Even though we may be shingling the whole roof, it might be worth a little bit of patchwork to get us by. Go ahead.
I'm pretty sure with the roofs last year, we were told that, and then not even a month to go with the budget, we had to put in a significant amount of money. So
that's why I'm trying to be proactive.
I would trust your judgment.
I'm trying to be proactive, and if we could get the money, and again, it might be that I look at it and I go look at the worst ones and say, let's do these two. But I put the roofs in that I went on, and I felt that the shingles are curled up, all the asphalt's gone off the shingles. There's a lot of moss on some shingles out to wane, and when you have that causes ice buildup, causes it to back into the building. And then I've been fighting for 2 weeks leaks, not to do with the shingles, but I've had a lot of water leaks, and I certainly don't want to chase this again next winter. So I'm going to try, if we can't get them shingled, I'm at least going to get up there and make sure that we're solid for the winter.
Are there any other questions for Kurt about any of these projects?
I guess I'm
Items,
dragging it out.
The roof for the high school is due.
The roof for the high school actually is not due for another year. Okay.
Okay.
And that's not on here, but I have walked that, and that roof looks good compared to the ones that I have on here. I have no issue with saying that that roof can wait, but we do have some issues with the roof right now with, we had some backed up ice in the library, and that looks to be like an engineering issue at this point in time. But again, I can't get to the end. We aren't to the end of solving the issue right now, so it's kind of hard to talk about it. But
So-
it's not because shingles are leaking, it's because we had ice buildup.
So have we figured out how to correct that ice buildup?
We have an engineer looking at it right now. The insurance company has an engineer looking at it.
Then we have a problem in Reedfield too, with the, that we had
It was Manchester.
Manchester, okay.
Manchester's has been corrected. What it was the snow builds up on the roof, and it was being sucked in from an HVAC system, and I ended up putting what they call a snorkel ductwork on that, so that now the snow would have to be about 4.5 feet tall to suck it into that system.
Sean?
Well, I remember last year talk about the heating system at the Manchester school. What's your thoughts on that? We had a lot of talk about how it's old and tired and.
Well, I'll tell you what my thoughts are, and I know that we're talking about putting a possible bond together, and I know that Siemens is the one that looks at all our heating systems. But, and I'm not putting anybody down, I'm just stating facts, okay? Siemens is the one that wanted $60,000 to remove a tank that I'm probably gonna get out of the ground for $5,000. So when they turn around and tell us that they want $1 million for a heating system, you can bet that I'm going to have some other people looking at it and determining what we need to do. Because if you take the same ratio of that, then I don't think that I believe that we need to do something with the heating system down there, but I don't believe that it's going to cost the amount of money that Siemens is telling us it is.
I guess my question is last year you said it was old and.
It is old.
Is it gonna quit?
It's not gonna quit. It's running. It's a steam boiler, which most places don't have steam boilers anymore. Probably your biggest fear would be that you blow something out as far as a component of the steam, and then you're not gonna be able to make steam. We did replace a bunch of steam lines this year that had, underneath the crawl space that goes to the classrooms, but I really don't see any urgency, but energy efficient wise and trying to upgrade that, I believe that we ought to be thinking about doing that, but I don't see any dire need that is going to fail this winter or next winter. But it is something that we definitely should be putting on our radar to get replaced.
And then at the Reedfield Elementary School, you did say there was an issue. You came in there earlier this year and said you were having an issue with the contractor and fixing the roof and a leak. Did you get that resolved?
I did get that resolved, and again, you're asking the question, so I'm going to tell you. I've had several issues with that contractor, okay, with roof issues.
Okay.
Thank you.
Adam?
I just have a question for the high school. It says biolab sink replacement. Can you talk a little about, are those leaking or
No,
are they
but
not there?
No, they're there, and they are in pretty rough shape. I looked at them today. And more so, they're actually in steel cabinets, and because they've gotten wet underneath, the bottom of the steel cabinets are all rusted, and they're in really, really bad shape. The sinks are in really bad shape. The faucets that go to those are in bad shape. Again, I put it back on. It was on there prior to me. I put it back on because it was dropped last year, but I think it's something that we should take a good look at. If we do drop it, I don't like to drop things. I like to go back in and say, what can we do? Maybe we replace a sink, or maybe we replace the one or two that are rusted. And, you know, this project was all of the sinks. Well, maybe you don't need to do them all in 1 year. Maybe we should break it down and do the worst ones first, and then continue from there. But some of these items I just rolled from last year's budget because I felt if they were important last year, they should be important this year as well.
Any other questions for Kurt?
Yeah, where's your 5-year plan coming? How's that doing?
It's down in Manchester in the basement, because that's where
Yeah.
I've been working. I'm working on it, Gary.
We
And-
need a date, otherwise you'll never get it done.
2020.
Yeah, then you'll be gone.
And any other questions for Adam?
One quick thing, I noticed that there's some stuff in here that has to do with athletics. I don't know if getting together with Mr. McGregor and as far as going through ABS, not that they could support all of this, but even chipping in on some of the athletic stuff, I think would be just something to look at.
Okay, do you want me to go through these other pages?
Would you please?
Okay, I'll try to go a little faster. Sorry about that. All right, so my purchase request, I'm trying to buy a zero-turn lawnmower, a Kubota diesel 60-inch, and that's because we're taking on the entire district as far as lawns this year. We did have Reedfield and Mount Vernon were contracted, Wayne was contracted, Manchester was contracted. Partway through the year last year, we did pick up Reedfield and Mount Vernon. Putting the facts out where they are, we were mowing lawns. We weren't weed whacking, we weren't trimming the shrubs, we weren't power washing the mold and the fungus, not mold, excuse me, take that back. The fungus and the growth that's growing on the side of the bricks or on the side of the siding. So I did buy this year a pressure washer. You'll see one of my other requests as I come to it that I've also asked to try to hire 2 summer people to help with the grounds, the gardens, which we did never get to. For years, it looks like we haven't maintained the septic systems. Last year, we had to cut a lot of trees off them. We had to have them removed. You'll see in there that I have Mount Vernon. When I came here, they had actually removed the trees with an excavator, and it looks like bombs went off up there. So we have to redo the top of that septic system and reseed it so that we can mow it. And we need to start mowing and maintaining those things. We just can't let them grow up on us. So with those things is the reason I'm asking for another, and a zero-turn lawnmower, when you say a 60-inch zero lawnmower, you know, Louis or I or anybody can go out here, and we can do these big fields in about 35 minutes. If you went out here with a regular lawnmower, you'd be 3 or 4 hours. So the other thing is, we have that lawnmower going almost constantly, and we do not have a spare. So if something happened to the zero-turn that we have now, which is old, then we wouldn't have a backup for that. So I really think that 2 reasons I want it is, one, to help with the district, and the other is that we have 2 of these available.
Any other questions about the maintenance equipment? Okay, classroom furniture?
The classroom furniture is a new budget under the maintenance program, but what we have decided to do is the principals of each school are going to get the request for furniture in their school to prioritize what they need in their school or what their actual needs are, and then between myself and the principal, we'll decide what it is that we need to buy for furniture for the requests that have come in, and we put it out for them to put their requests in already, so that's where we get these numbers from, is what we really needed for furniture.
The Siemens maintenance contract?
Okay, so another thing, when I first came here, I was told that we, the maintenance department, maintain our HVAC systems throughout the district. What are you talking about for maintain? I found most of our HVAC systems with filters that were changed over a year ago. Okay, those filters should be changed 2 or 3 times a year, but that's not maintenance, that's changing a filter. Maintenance is greasing the motors, checking the belts, changing the belts, checking the shivs, checking the motor for efficiency, vacuuming them out, cleaning them, making sure that they aren't full of dust and dirt. So we don't have the staff, and we never have, to be able to do it and do it properly. I would like to think someday, as a maintenance group, group that we can. But until I can get my hands around it, I don't want to not continue to maintain those. So Siemens has given me this price. Again, back to your thoughts, Gary, is I definitely would contract it out. But this is a price that Siemens offered to take the maintenance, and that's district-wide, of all of our HVAC systems, and that includes 2 filter changes and a belt change and an energy efficient run on every motor, and to get into those twice a year. So that's what that request is for.
And you spoke briefly about the increase in staffing, the two positions.
Right.
Any questions?
No questions.
I guess I do. How much were we paying for contracting, like mowing and stuff, do you know that? Just to put it in perspective, I guess, is my question.
She's probably got the numbers in front of her.
Well, not in front of her, but they're in my brain. Manchester has very little lawn, there's just very little. So they were paying about $1,200 a year to have that, but that was just the lawn, it was not the flower beds. Over in Wayne, we were paying $700 a year, and that was basically, the custodian over there also has his own business that he does, and so we were actually, he was doing it on school time, but we were basically renting his equipment for him to do it every year. Mount Vernon and Reedfield, we've actually just tried to hire like a high school or college kid to come in for, a couple days a week to do those for several years now, but it's been very difficult. We don't get consistent people doing it, and so it's not always done correctly, so.
Thank you.
Okay. Transportation.
Thanks, Kurt. I'm doing transportation.
Okay.
I am.
Beautiful.
The transportation budget includes funding for field trips at the elementary school and advisory day out trips at the middle and high school. It also includes salary and benefit increases. The transportation budget includes 5 current bus leases and 2 new bus leases. The buses cost approximately $88,000 apiece, and the lease purchase expenditures are based on 4-year agreements. We've been approved by the state for the reimbursement for 1 bus. We have 2 buses in the budget, so we will be discussing the possibility of purchasing only 1 bus, which is exactly what happened last year, so.
Any discussion? Okay. And all those other miscellaneous cost centers.
So Steve Vos is going to do our adult education budget. He's our Director of Adult Ed.
Good evening, everyone. Like Donna said, my name is Steve Vos. I'm the Director of Adult and Community Education here. Also on my staff is Sue Simons and Nicole Cushing. And everything that I'm going to describe to you tonight, we do with about a total of 62 hours a week. So the first thing I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about adult education. I think some people think of adult education and they think basket weaving or maybe one of our enrichment activities, which are great. We actually have a wide variety of wonderful and exciting enrichment activities that we host here. And enrichment is where a lot of the money gets brought into our program. So I'm going to talk about enrichment first, but I want to move on after that and talk about what we offer for vocational programming. And really the cornerstone of any adult education program is the education component, being able to offer high-set programming out to the local communities. So enrichment. So an important component about any adult and community education program is the enrichment classes. These offerings are especially critical to those living in rural communities such as ours, where opportunities to access these services might be limited. The Adult and Community Education Program here at RSU 38 offers participants a chance to obtain valuable technical skills, complete required trainings, access health and fitness opportunities, and attend classes where lives are not only enriched by learning, but also by social interaction. Overall, the Adult and Community Education Program here at RSU 38 offers all community members a chance to access a wide variety of classes and enrichment opportunities. So program participants remain closely connected to their local school system even after they no longer have children in attendance. And yearly, approximately 1,000 people take our enrichment classes. So moving on, vocational. We also run here at our adult education program a CDL class, which is commercial truck driving license, and I've had the opportunity to talk to the board earlier this year about that program. So I'll be brief. Within our program, we try to allow people to get their CDL license and then move into a job opportunity as quickly as possible. I've said in the past, I like to view it as not only a certificate program, but a job program, moving people right into employment. For those people who do take our class, we expect them to, within a very reasonable amount of time, actually secure employment. And if they don't, they work with our program to get employment. I like to see people move into employment within 3 months. We host career nights. We offer support services to help people move into those opportunities. In the previous 3 semesters, we have graduated 31 people through our CDL program, with 98% going on to pass the state-required testing. And we work a lot with the local career center in Augusta, as well as vocational rehab. And together, these 2 entities send us about 60 to 70% of our students. I'm going to move into the educational component. Another huge part of adult education is obviously education and the work we do to prepare adult students with better, fuller lives through HiSET, which is our high school diploma testing program, as well as high school equivalency diploma and college transitions program. By providing these skills, adult education provides hope and inspires students to become valuable and active members of the communities in which they live. So why are these things important? So I'm going to provide a couple statistics through the World Education Partnership, which is online at worlded.org. So adults without a high school diploma are more than twice as likely to live in poverty and 3 times more likely to be unemployed. Local governments gain approximately $6,000 in tax revenue for every adult who earns a high school diploma. Income for Mainers age 25 and older without a high school diploma is about $15,000 a year, while those with a high school diploma earn about $25,000 a year. And 63% of all U.S. jobs at this time require education beyond high school, so critical. The students who enroll in our educational programs come from a wide cross-section of the population. Many are hardworking individuals from the surrounding communities who, due to life circumstances or events, were unable to complete their high school diplomas. Often these students arrive ready to learn and are able to complete programming and HiSET requirements with only a basic level of tutoring. Other students require extensive supports that can lead to student referrals to other agencies, where students receive services while still working toward their high school diploma. Outside services can include substance abuse counseling, domestic violence counseling, career preparation to the Career Center, ride share, and job find services through Goodwill. So we work in partnership with other programs. This referral process allows us to provide support for the entire person, not just their educational needs. Every year we graduate between 6 and 10 students through our HiSET high school equivalency testing program. And these students can take from several months to years to gain the skills that they need to pass this testing requirement. While students in our care, we maintain frequent contact with them, calling them, texting them, emailing them, to ensure that they are attending classes regularly, and to have them know that we not only care deeply about their educational success, but we care deeply for them as individuals. The adult and community education programs across the state have started to see an upswing in the number of vocational and educational students entering their programs. This is a reversal of a trend that started in 2010 following the national economic downturn. In the past 2 years, the number of students entering adult education has increased. It is believed this latest trend is a direct result of the new political climate and perhaps an upswing in the national economy. So with all that, I will start in with budget. So I want to start by saying that adult education is very fiscally responsible. The annual expenditure per adult learner is around $800, and by contrast, the national average per pupil expenditure on public elementary and secondary education is about $10,000 per pupil. The adult and community education as a whole, we try to be, like I said, very cost effective. So over the past several years, I obviously worked to lower the adult and community education budgets to keep operational and administrative costs as fiscally responsible as possible. This year, however, for the first time since I started here 4 years ago, I need to add a few things to my budget. So let me explain why. First, in January of 2007, the Maine Department of Education made it mandatory that every adult education program in the state convert from paper-based HiSET testing to computer-based. At this point, we were running our computer-based testing program on computers that are 6 years old. And so to allow us to continue to offer the computer-based testing, I'm going to need to purchase 2 new laptops at a cost of about $2,000. Now, obviously, I need for the testing services to run more than 2 laptops, but I'd like to phase in a couple laptops every year until I'm able to get enough where I'm able to then have a fresh batch that I would be able to use for testing purposes. The other computers would be retired, and I would allow adults that wanted to use a computer in class, or if I have a computer class, for them to be able to use them. As you know, the computer labs here in the high school are actually slowly disappearing as students become more and more attached to handheld devices. So it's harder and harder for our adult learners to get access to those. So second, in previous budget cycles, I had my administrative support position cut by about 10 hours. So for the past 2 years, I've added the task previously done by that individual to my workload. In addition, in the last 2 years, I've also taken on the complete design of the adult education brochure, which was a task previously that we hired out. I've also added the management of the senior cafe, which is a job requiring the organization of weekly educational programming and presenters for the senior citizens in our communities to be able to come in and enjoy those. So that I can continue to operate and manage my program effectively, I'm asking to have those 10 hours returned. So that would bring my admin support position up to a total of 40 hours. And so to add that to the budget would be approximately $8,000. So this concludes my overview of the Adult and Community Education Program as well as my budget requests. Thank you for your time. Do you have any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Gary.
I made a point to have an officer come to your school for CDL.
Sure.
And the reason why I did that is because the federal government for CDL is coming out with a deal that they need to understand what happens when they have inspections. And you people have turned him down, and he's come to me and said, they don't want me anymore. And that was his comment and what he got out of the phone call that was made to the officer. That was made arrangements to be here, was going to be here, got the time off to be here. It didn't go over very well.
I actually,
Just for your own sake.
yeah, I actually called him. We scheduled a time. I had 3 students that were in attendance that night, and he never showed.
That was not what he said.
Oh, okay.
It was our cancellation. And if you only had 3 kids in that class, that isn't what you normally tell us. You say you always have 10 or more.
No, there were 3 that wanted to attend that night. It wasn't during a class. We had to have a special time for him to show.
Yeah. Well, he's not too pleased with us.
Okay.
And you need to start thinking about what the federal government is requiring. You say it's not your job? I'm telling you what is coming down the pike. I sit on a board, and I know what's coming down. And that's going to be one of the things that have to be in a mandatory school.
Okay.
Any other discussion items? Okay.
Thank you.
Food service.
Food service. You do have the food service operations budget in your packet. The total expenditure budget for FY-18 is the same as last year. We are going to be studying the meals purchased in the next few weeks to determine if we need to make any changes in this proposed budget. You heard several weeks ago from our auditor how well he feels our food service budget, our food service operations are doing, running in the black while many others are still running in the red. So Jeff Bridges is here if you have any questions for him.
Any
Anybody have a
questions
question?
for Jeff? Thank you for being here, Jeff. Professional health.
The slight increase in the health budget is due to salary and benefits and to the proposed purchase of a pediatric digital audiometer. Revised state law requires vision and hearing screening for pre-K students to be done within 30 days of the start of the school year. Our district screening tools are dated, and we had been using the Head Start tools, but next year we will not be having any Head Start programs. They have pulled out of our district, so their tools are not available to us. So it is important that we purchase our own screening tool. Becca Reynolds is here to speak about the health center. So Becca? She's our health center director.
Hi, everybody. How are you? I have our new rack card, and you're the first people to see it, so I wanted to give you all a sample. So on behalf of all of us at the School-Based Health Center, I would like to thank all of you, Superintendent Wolfram, and this community for another great year of support. It's a privilege to be able to provide healthcare services to the youth in our community, and we couldn't do this important work without all of you. I would like to introduce first Mariah. Mariah is a young woman who has made great strides during her time here at Maranacook, and she would like to share a few words about what the health center means to her.
Hello, I'm Mariah. I'm a junior here at Maranacook, and I have taken advantage of the health center since freshman year. The staff and nurses in the health center are so kind and caring. I'm sure they would help me with just about anything, and they have. I feel as if the health center wasn't available to me, my world would fall apart. Like, for example, when I'm having a rough day, I go to the health center because I can talk to people in there, and they know how to make me feel better. I've received feminine products from the health center, counseling for personal issues, even things like strep testing from the nurse practitioner, and more. They help teach us about healthy relationships and how to stay safe. One big reason the health center is so important to me is because I may not have been able to get any of these things because my family doesn't have transportation to get to the doctor's office. It's sometimes hard for people to understand how difficult not having a car can be. I appreciate everything that the health center has done for me, and I hope that it can continue, not only for me, but for everyone else at Maranacook too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariah.
Our Student Advisory Board has been working hard to educate their peers on the services that we provide. This is a group of 14 students that has reached out to share information on mental health, teen dating violence prevention, healthy relationship education, and stress management. These students are fantastic advocates, and the future is bright with these young leaders in the forefront. This year, our enrollment has reached an all-time high of 58% of the high school population. This number tells us that parents in the district understand the value of these services and have experienced their benefit firsthand. Thanks to the amazingly deep roots of this health center and the support of our community health advisory, we've been able to secure a working relationship with the Maine Dartmouth Family Medicine Residency. Our new physician's assistant employed by FMI is beginning to build relationships with students that will grow as the years go by. The health center's need for funding remains the same as it was last year. The $30,000 that the district provides helps to support the educational efforts, reporting requirements, and general operation and management that keep our health center going. We hope that the state of Maine will extend our contract for another year, although have learned that these funds are never certain, so we keep a reserve in the event of a funding loss. Before I close, I would like to recognize and thank Sandy Hunter. Sandy's here tonight. She has been serving as our school nurse in the high school for 25 years. Sandy has announced that she will be retiring this year. As one of the individuals that began the health center and has carried its vision forward throughout the years, her service to the young people of this community is nothing short of remarkable. Sandy is the heart of our school. I was doing some math calculations, and I'm not a mathematician, but I figured out that over the past 25 years, I think Sandy has helped over 150,000 kids. So I really, and I calculated that using real numbers, so I think it's a good number. I think we could probably write that down somewhere, make a plaque. So Sandy really is the heart of our school. We will miss her, and we wish her all the best. She has a few words to share.
So, as Becca said, I'm retiring in June, and so I will be the last school nurse to work in the high school before there was a health center, and that was 25 years ago, and then, of course, after. And trust me, there is no comparison when I speak to you about the services our students now receive. If I was a doctor in private practice in Manhattan or Beverly Hills, I would not be able to get patient services quicker than we can get those same services to our students at Maranacook. 25 years ago, if I talked to a student who was depressed, I would call their parents and suggest counseling. Maybe I would provide a name or two of counselors in Augusta or even farther away towns. But really, parents were on their own. And if the parent did follow through and make those calls, the waiting time for an initial evaluation was often 2 months or more. Now we have counselors from Kennebec Behavioral Health right in our health center. If I talk to a student who is depressed or anxious, I contact a parent and at times can have them seen within the week. And if the student is reluctant to seek help, at times I can have them just meet the counselor for 10 minutes that same day. They see that the counselor is kind and human, and it helps them feel that counseling is in fact doable. The same is true for physical complaints. One example would be a student we had with redness and swelling around one of her eyes. I immediately referred her to our nurse practitioner, and the diagnosis was made of periorbital cellulitis, an infection of the surrounding tissue of the eye, which, if left untreated, can lead to blindness in the eye. Our nurse practitioner called the student's mom, advised her to take her daughter immediately to the emergency room, and the nurse practitioner called the emergency room and told them that this student was coming. From there, she was admitted and was treated with 5 days of intravenous antibiotics. The outcome would have been life-changing for this girl if immediate action was not taken. I am telling you these stories to ask you to please believe in our health center. It provides quality services that students would oftentimes not receive or that they would not receive in a timely manner. Please visit our health center and talk to our amazing director, Becca Reynolds. Thank you, Dr. Wolfram, and members of the school board for your time and attention to this important part of our school.
Sandy, thank you so much for your service, for your stories, and they should be written down somewhere. 25 years is a long time.
Thank you.
Are there any questions about the health center or anything? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Sure.
Next is three budgets, professional development, assessment, and curriculum. And Nancy Harriman will present those budgets.
Hello. I will try to keep this part brief, and if you have more questions, that's great. Assessment, there is a increase of $3,308, and which is about a 4.6% increase, and that is due to two things. One is for the past few years, the state has paid for sophomores to take the PSAT, and they are no longer covering that cost, and so we have put it in our district budget because it is a really useful assessment for students to take that earlier on, and then they do all take the SAT, which the state does cover now as their state assessment when they're juniors, correct? Okay. I was like, somebody's looking at me kind of, I'm like, I have this right? Okay, so that $2,000 covers the fee for the PSAT for all of our sophomores. And then the remaining $1,300 increase is salary and benefit anticipated increases for salaries. Half of my salary is in this assessment budget, and the other half is in the curriculum budget, which we're going to look at next. And there is a reason for that, and that's because I'm not sure if it's still true, but the state, in the way they calculate the formulas for things, you're required to spend a certain percentage of your salary on assessment, so that, a certain percent of your budget on assessment, so that's why we have it divided like that. In the curriculum budget, this budget is also up. about 3.69%, and it is all due to anticipated increases in salaries or benefits, which we don't know exactly what those will be yet, but we have a figure we're using. And the salaries in this particular area include half of mine and half of our K-12 literacy coach.
And all of Sarah.
And all of Sarah. I was thinking none of Sarah. It's actually all of our K-12 math coach. Thank you. Yes. Okay, and the third area is professional development. And this one is up a fair amount because Bridget very carefully is anticipating, we both are a little concerned, we're not sure what's going to happen with our professional development funding. We've been receiving that through the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which was then known for a while as NCLB, which is now renamed ESSA, which is Every Student Will Succeed Act, but it's kind of on hold in Congress because of changes in administration. So we're just concerned. We provide a lot of high-quality professional development, intensive professional development in the summer for teachers, and we've been able to pay them stipends for their time out of that grant funding. But should we not have that grant funding this summer, we put in about $5,000 to cover some of that cost. Any questions?
Thank you, Nancy.
So as the head chief of this curriculum, I was reading all these papers and I was going back in my mind. Under this proficiency operation, if a kid continually falls below standards, are we going to graduate him? Or are we going to do something different?
So in our district, the way the proficiency system will work is we are monitoring students for proficiency and assessing it and keeping track of that and reporting it to parents all the way from K through 5. And then we do it again from 6 through 8, and those records are continuous. And then what they do in 9 through 12 to meet those high school standards is what is the most important part of their record for graduation. But so we're trying to provide interventions and support and just have everybody be more aware all along the way the student is not meeting the standards.
So the kid comes up, and what I'm asking is when he gets up there at the high school level, are you going to allow him to receive a diploma?
According to the Maine law, we will no longer be able to issue a diploma. It has to be a proficiency-based diploma, and they have to have met proficiency in whatever the target areas are. That I think Dr. Wolfram reported on that in her board report this time. It's phased in over the years, but so that would be starting with next year's freshmen when they are but they'll be getting progress reports along the way and have opportunities to, keep working on those standards if they don't meet them the first time, but they have to meet them in order to graduate in math, science, social studies, and
So here's
reading,
what
language
I
arts.
see in what was presented in all these papers that I have here, is that it's pretty good in 3rd grade. And then we start to fail in 4th, and the failure keeps going in the 5th. And then I go all the way up to 6, 7, and 8, and I'm looking at these failures. We got to come up with a different plan to hit these failures. Because, you can't be passing people on at the low grades and not getting these failures higher. And so what are you doing in the curriculum area to help these teachers Or do they need to start teaching to the test?
Well, I think the.
Let's be honest about it and just put it out there.
It's
Are
first,
you doing-
one thing that I just want to be clear about, because this question came up at the 8th grade night just a couple weeks ago, is there isn't one test that you take at the end of high school
Right.
that is what you pass in order to meet the proficiencies. You're assessed on specific standards in every unit, in every required course for high school proficiency that you take all along the way. So it's a record that you establish over time of meeting proficiencies, and that is the same in the content areas when they're in the lower grades in the middle school as well. The professional development that I mentioned, I'll give you one example, that last summer we offered a K-12 math leadership institute. It was very powerful. We had teachers from K-5, 6-8, and 9-12 who were part of a professional study group for 3 full days. They read about professional practices. They did a lot of math together, and they did lesson planning together, and a group of them have continued to meet. I was just meeting with them today until 5 o'clock, have continued to meet to work for professional development certificate once a month, and they plan lessons together on the same concept or strand, but they're teaching them at their grade levels. And then they bring in, their students' work, and they share it, and they talk about the progression of learning. I think that's the kind of professional development it takes. It's not easy, and it's expensive to provide, but it's very effective. Those teachers are really seeing a lot of success with their students. They have a better understanding what comes before, what comes after their level. So I think it's just one example. Are there other questions about the budget? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Systems administration. This includes salary and benefits for central office staff, except for special education administration and administrative support. Special ed has its own separate budget, as you know. It also includes an increase in the line for legal fees. Any questions on system administration?
And we don't know yet how much or whether we will receive any state funding for this line, for this entire line.
That is correct, depending on what happens in the legislature this year.
Thank you.
The next budget is the debt service budget, and this budget includes the two new buses that we have planned on. And again, we may have to eliminate one of those buses. And bond payments for middle school construction, the athletic field construction, and high school renovations, which were voted on by the citizens several years ago. And Bridget's going to talk more about bonds and lease purchases.
Included in your packet is our current schedule, it looks like this, of actual debt payments that we owe, not only for bonds, but also for lease purchases of equipment and energy upgrades that we've done in the past. The things highlighted in yellow are the payments that are due this next year. The things that are in green lines are all the major debt that we've taken on to either build or upgrade our buildings in this district. The reason and then there's a second sheet that says debt retirement. I want to bring this up because, as was mentioned earlier, we have a heating system in Manchester that needs to be upgraded, and that's a major expense. We have a Maranacook High School roof that within the next couple years needs to be replaced. That's $750,000. We have parking lots and entrance roads that are getting in rough shape and need to be replaced and redone, along with some other smaller but still expensive upgrades that need to be done in our district. I was really hoping that we could hold off another couple years because we do have some debt that's being retired. And on the bottom, that's the sheet that's debt retirement. And this was sent out in the packet that was emailed to you. And if you look at the bottom, you'll see that in September 28th of 2019, we'll be retiring $128,065 in debt. November 1st of 2020, that's when the middle school is actually paid off. And these are all local dollars that's being covered down here. We'll be retiring $326,587. July 15th of 2021, we'll retire another $49,524. And November 1st of 2022, we'll retire $101,308, which is the debt on the renovations to this high school. I would have liked to be able to say that I could hold off on doing some major renovations to this district till at least one or two of these is paid off. I don't think we can wait that long. I think we need to start looking at doing either bonding or doing a very large lease purchase for these renovations. And I estimate, and this is really a big ballpark figure, between $5 and $6 million worth of renovations that need to be done. The Manchester School is probably $1 million just for the heating system. They probably also need some HVAC upgrades. Like I said, the roof here, plus you heard Kurt Morse talk about some other roofs that need to be redone, all the parking lot and road issues. So I have been on the phone with the lawyers, talking to him about what it takes to do a bond, because the last time we did a bond in this district was for the middle school and the high school renovations. And I was not the business manager at that time, so and it was a long time ago, so I needed to get some upgraded information. We also had a presentation from Siemens, and they will do large lease purchases. And they told me they've done one up to $8.5 million. I think that's a really large lease purchase, but they said they can do it, and I asked them whether or not, because all the projects that we need done aren't necessarily, because Siemens is an HVAC company, heating, ventilation company, and all the projects that we need done aren't necessarily their expertise, but they said they would hire in specialists to do that. So you do have another sheet that was sent out in the packet, emailed in the packet, and it basically talks about the different options and the pros and cons of those options. Both processes have extensive legal oversight to them. You have to work directly with your lawyers all the time, all the way through the process. They both require a request for qualification process. That means you have to actually, first you bid out qualifications. You don't even bid out the projects. You bid out the qualifications of the company or architect or engineer that's going to oversee your projects. Then the next step is the real big difference between the two. A bond requires a referendum process. It requires the townspeople to vote on whether or not we go forward with a bond. A lease purchase only requires a school board approval. And so I know there are some big feelings, one way or the other, from different board members on how they feel about that. An architect, if you do it with a bond process, you usually will use an architect who will oversee and hire the specific people. They will need some upfront payment. And this is one of the reasons I want to bring this up, because even if we decide to go forward with a bond, I will need to, and we put out to referendum this November, we'd need to hire the architects right away, and we would need between $50,000 and $75,000 upfront money for an architect. So that would have to be put into this budget, and it's not in there right now. If we do a lease purchase, basically the company, Siemens or whoever you end up choosing for that type of project, will not require you to have any upfront money. They don't expect any payment until the actual lease purchase kicks in. and it will be included as part of the lease purchase. Also, if, say, if the referendum, if you decide to go with a bond and the referendum fails, you will still owe the architect the upfront money is basically just a down payment on what their fee is. Their fee is based on the amount of your project, and it's approximately 10% of the project. So if you do a $5 million project, the architect's fee is actually going to be about $500,000. You will still owe that if the referendum fails. And so you will have to find a way to, you can probably spread it out, but you will have to find a way to pay that. With a lease purchase, you can negotiate what that total fee will be with a maximum amount. It could be $30,000, it could be $50,000. Again, it's going to depend on how much work they actually put in, but they will basically not charge you the entire amount, where with the architect, you still would owe that. If you do a bond, and I mean, you could do several small bonds, but each one would take a separate referendum and a separate legal process and whatnot. So basically, if you're going to bond, you're going to bond once and try to roll everything in to your money at one time. You could still spread the projects out over a couple of years, but you'd be sitting on that money while you're doing those. Whereas a lease purchase, you could set it up to be in phases. So you could say, well, these are all of our projects, but these first 5 are the most important, so we're going to do those in phase 1 in the first year, and then we would just do a lease purchase financial agreement for that project, and say the next year you're going to phase in the next 5 projects. And so you could phase in the leases so that you're not getting hit with a total payment, the total bond payment or the total payment of everything you want to do all at one time. More than likely, we will spread this out over 20 years, whether it's a lease purchase or whether it's a bond, because we're talking some big money. And so we want to make sure that it's able to be financially handled by the towns. In a bond and going through a regular architect, there are possibility that the amount of the project could change, because you could have change orders. In a lease purchase, usually the engineers or whoever is overseeing that eat the change orders. They come to an agreement on this is what the project costs, and if something is found that needs to be changed, they just eat that cost. So I just wanted everybody to have some of the different ways to go with that, and I'm actually kind of hoping that either tonight or within the next couple weeks, the board can give me a direction on which way they want to go, because if we want to bond, I need to be able to build money into this budget.
Do we know what projects would be included in that bond at this point, or lease purchase? And how soon do we need to make a decision?
Well, I've named off some of the projects, but what would happen is once you decide what you're doing and you do your request for qualifications, that architect or engineering firm or whatever is going to come in and they're going to work with you. They're going to go through your district and tell you what they feel need to be done for projects. And then we, as a school district and school board, would make the decisions on which projects we want to include in that. Again, even if we get this started, get the money in the budget, hopefully if the budget goes through and we decide to do this, this summer we would be having the architect or engineers start working, we do our request for qualifications right away. Because we're still not even talking about doing any work until the summer of 2018. So that's at least a year off. And more than likely, the first payment would be the year after that. So other than architect fees and legal fees, I don't think we would have any other fees in next year. And that would just be basically the down payment or the startup fees for the architect. So the cost of an actual payment on it wouldn't be until 18-19.
Discussion.
So here's the problem. We sat here 2 years ago, and you took on the responsibility, and you knew that we needed a 5-year plan. We sit here tonight, and Kurt was up there, and he passed it off and said, no, we're not going to have a 5-year plan to 2020. It's garbage. I said he wouldn't be around, and he shouldn't be around if he can't get the job done. And you knew when we hired this guy, and you told him, we need the 5-year plan. And so we bring our dear financial officer here, and she's suffering again because we have no plan. And what you're saying is we want $6 million, and we saw what happened last year. And it's not right. The public needs to know. And for him to tell me that he can't get it done or hasn't got it done, I talked to him in the beginning of this year. That's how important it is. And it's not important to him right now. I'm telling you that.
Well, it is important to him, and he is working on it. However, as Bridget said, part of this, the bonding process or the lease purchase process is the company or the architect or engineer would come in, do a complete study of our district, and determine what projects they feel are priority projects. It would be the board's responsibility to decide which ones of those, or all of them, would be taken on at that point.
All right, then we should hire an architecture, period. That should have been done.
Well, we knew we were entering the bonding process, and that was last year that we talked about bonding. And Bridget was charged, we were charged with learning about it, which has been researched now, and we're presenting this information. So what we really need is a direction, not any specifics about specific amounts of money or projects, but a direction whether to go in the bonding process, to pursue the bonding process, or to pursue the lease purchase process, because it does have an impact on our budget. So if the board wants us to pursue the bonding process, we would need to put some money in to hire the architect in this budget.
Well, if we're
Sean.
talking about the two processes, the big thing here to me is the amount of money, and the public under one is not involved.
That's correct.
And when you not have the public behind you, you lost a lot of force in your school district. So I am more in tune with the bonding, because when you're talking $6 million, you're talking about each town, and they need to have, wait a minute here, let's talk about how we're going to approach it, each town. And that should bring in the next question is, what would it cost, which should come underneath this guy who's going to do this what if we had one other building put out here, what will we save, should be the question also. And all these small little schools eliminated. And so that we have everybody together, get people, all our staff, so that they're more in tune to all these people. I really believe that people need to understand this process. And this process should have been done 2 years ago. And we're waiting around this long. It's not acceptable.
Sean.
Thank you. So I guess I am in favor of the bond process. I'm strongly opposed to a lease purchase process. I did a little research. I believe that you're limited to the amount, from what I learned from folks in the contracting world, you're limited, the companies that could do a lease purchase. You're very limited. Yes. I mean, there's very few companies that have that kind of capital to do that. Your projects, from what the folks told me, would cost you a lot more money, I believe, that they believe. I also believe that, their taxpayers need to have approval, but so I guess my direction would be to hire an architect put money in the budget to hire an architect and to go around the district and tell the person to go high and low and give us the high figure, and we can go from there. But I will not support a lease purchase.
Other discussion? Terry?
I too think
Can you speak into your mic?
I too think the bond process is the way to go, because I suspect that we will save money by doing it that way, even if the process is more complicated. And it was interesting, when I came in this evening, I heard talk about the particular company that we're discussing, giving a quote that was, what, like 6 times higher than what it actually took to do whatever it was he was doing?
You're removing the
and stuff.
tanks.
It's kind of like when you go buy a car, you know, they can make it easy for you, but in the long run, it gets really expensive. It's just that it's easier to sign. And I hopefully the interest rates will still be good with the bond market, and, yeah, and everything. So that would be the direction that I instinctively think would be the best to take.
Anyone else?
I just had a fall. I missed one of my notes, sorry.
Sean?
Another thing, yeah, I did a little research, I talked to folks, is you can, and I'm not pretending to be a bond expert, I talked to people way smarter than I am who have done this, and they said you can do a drawdown bond. You can borrow like 10 million bucks, and you only pay, similar to a home equity, is how they described it in simple terms. So you can do that, so I think that might be a wise way to go, if we can lock in a low interest rate, and again, people are way smarter than I am when it comes to money, so.
Do we need to give you direction tonight, or?
If they're ready.
If they're ready, or if you want 2 weeks, maybe we can come back in 2 weeks, but.
Do you have any comments?
I don't know if I'll get a second, but I'd like to make a motion to direct, I don't know if we can direct, or make a motion that we hire an architect to start the research.
I second that.
So
you want
to
a bond?
pursue the bond process.
Bond process with hiring an architect. I think that needs to be the first step, because, I mean, we've heard that the roof needs to be done in the high school, the heating system needs to be done in Manchester. Is it a year, is it 2 years? I mean, there's some pretty serious projects, this in the $600,000 in my mind. I mean, kids walking down the hill in the middle of a winter, I don't think that's safe. Water not working, or even if it's for 10 minutes at a time, I don't think that's safe. I mean, so.
I second that motion.
Okay. Any discussion? Adam?
Just, I guess, well, what was the idea of how much an architect to hire one? What was that initial fee?
Well, what we'd need to put into the budget for next year is the lawyers told me 50 to 75,000. That's basically a down payment on but they would be doing, you'd sign a contract with them, and that's what they would start doing the work on. And at that point, if the referendum goes through, then the bond actually covers the architect's fees. You build that into it's the only issue is if the referendum were to go down, you still would owe the architects, but then you could probably get into a payment plan with them. But again, hopefully we will choose projects that are we show that are really needed. We do all the presentations to explain to the townspeople exactly what the projects are, why they're needed, and whatnot, and so that we'll do our homework and all of the presentations ahead of time, so before you do the actual bond, the referendum, and hopefully we don't have a problem.
We are not planning to go to referendum in June.
No.
You don't have enough time.
My hope is that we go to referendum in November. Hopefully, the architects can get the work done, because as soon as the budget's passed, we can go out for that request for proposal, request for qualifications, and that's a process in itself. You have to, you have to interview different architect firms, and you look at their qualifications and whatnot, and then you finally choose somebody, and then they start the work of looking at your district and telling you what they need. And the facilities committee will have to be big time at that point. You will be having routine meetings and whatnot to work on that. So the hope is we'd go to referendum in November. Some banks will do bonds that large, some of them will not. If we have to go through the Maine Municipal Bond Bank, they only do bonding in the fall and in the spring, so we'd be shooting probably, if we had to go through the bond bank for a spring issue of the Maine Municipal Bond Bank, but certain banks do bonds. I did speak with one of our bank representatives, and he said a bank is usually quite competitive up to maybe like 3 million. After that, they are not always as competitive as far as the interest rates, because at the Maine Bond Bank, the reason they only do it twice a year is they bundle. They bundle everybody who's going at one time, and so they can get a better rate that way. But again, it's a lot's going to depend on timing on everything. But if we go for a spring issue of the bond, that will mean first payment will be due the following year, because you usually make one principal payment and 2 interest payments every year on a bond.
So that's the spring of FY-18.
For the bonding.
For the bonding.
Yeah.
It's a long process.
Yes, it's a long
Yeah.
process.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to put, I mean, once the architect is hired, at some point, will the board have some discussion about what they want to see put in this evaluation of everything? I say that because Gary brought up building another school. And as a board, maybe we want to discuss whether that's something we want them to investigate or not.
It's
So at
something that
some
we should
point-
think about.
No, I know you do, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, but I think I think we should,
It needs a full board discussion.
yeah, thanks.
And again, it's been a long time since we built a new school. I would estimate, number one, when the middle school was built, it was finished in 2001, that was an $8.5 million building. That would probably cost you double that now. So you're talking 16 million. The school approval process at the state for a new school, probably 10 years. So again, we need to think about, will we make these 4 elementary schools limp along for 10 years doing this process with systems that are failing or going bad? Or do we, do the repairs to the elementary schools now? And the high school and the middle school, the middle school may have some, it's our newest school, so it's not as needy as some of our other schools, but a new school process, especially through the state, is probably a minimum of 10 years.
Right, and it could be very controversial among the various communities as well. So I just,
But if you
It
start
would-
the process, you're going to be further ahead.
Right, it would be, there would probably be 2 separate things, starting the process of discussing elementary schools, but going ahead with the bonding process for the projects that we'll want to work on.
If we go for, if we want to begin the process on new schools, then there needs to be committees set up representing all of the towns. It's a big process. Separate, which needs to be separate from these at this point. Okay, we have a motion to begin begin investigation of the bonding process. Any other discussion? All those in favor, Adam.
Are we meeting with the town selectmen at some point?
No.
To do the budget? I guess.
No,
they
that
sit
gets
in-
done.
They sit on.
The next meeting.
Next meeting.
Okay, any other questions about this motion?
I just wanted to respond to your question. Last year, the selectmen from the various towns were very clear that they would like us to start a bond process.
All those in favor? Opposed? None. Thank you.
Sorry if that made things more difficult.
Okay, over that hurdle.
All right. Board questions about the budget. Any other discussion? We've been having questions all along, but are there anything? Is there anything that anyone wants to question or make a statement on? Okay. Citizen comments on the budget. No one signed up?
Well.
Yeah.
I just had a quick question, and it may go towards Al McGregor as far as your numbers. When you said that the amount, by adding a 7th grade boys and girls soccer team, does that, you said 276 kids that would, no, let me, hold on. Does that include 6th graders? Okay, but 6th graders can't play, is that correct?
The numbers come in for 7th grade, how that works. You have your 8th grade team, your 7th grade team. In the past, when you have a soccer team, you have about 24, 25 kids that be able to participate on that. So in the past, when we've had the soccer teams, there have been some 6th graders who have been able to go out and participate in the numbers.
And that's in every sport, not just soccer, is that correct, as far as
No.
6th graders
Well,
playing?
yeah, how it works, like basketball season. Your numbers obviously are a lot lower in basketball. You got 5 kids on the court. You usually have no more than 15 kids. So you have your 8th grade team. Most of the time, you can fill your 8th grade team with 8th grade kids. Same thing with the 7th grade team. So the 6th graders are not provided an opportunity to play on the basketball teams, but you do have the Nordic and the Alpine ski teams at the middle school where they can have 30 kids out there.
Okay.
So 6th graders are allowed to participate with those, but with the team sports, when you've got the clock running, so many kids can play in a minute, and so many uniforms and everything, then that's where you have the 8th grade, 7th grade.
Okay.
Make sense?
I guess, yeah, thank you. I guess my concern with that to the board is just, you have a middle school, you have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders attending that middle school, include them in all your sports. That was just one of my things. You have 6th graders who, like you said, can't necessarily play basketball, but they can ski. So that's just, when you do your budget, and maybe we do a varsity and junior varsity instead of 6 and 7, 7 and 8. So that was just my question to that. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
On your committee reports?
Informational items. Any other reports?
So there was one thing in there, I don't know if every board member noticed it. Board members are welcome to attend and check out our reading school-wide bookworm. I don't know if people read that. They're looking for volunteers.
Where are you?
Elementary school
Okay.
for Mount Vernon.
Any other questions on any of the
Yeah,
reports?
the other question I have is, whose report is this? Let me see.
That's middle school?
How about 52 of our 8th graders were chosen to participate in the National Assessment of Education? How come not all 126?
That's the NAEP assessment, and we don't have any control over who's chosen for that or how many. It's due to the state office that deals with the NAEP. So we don't have any control. Typically, in most schools, about half of your 8th grade that gets chosen to take one test or
So
the
who
other.
chooses them? You or?
No, we send the attendance list into, for the 8th grade into.
Oh, so it's just
the
a
state.
sample? of
Right.
the-
They pick a random sampling.
Oh, okay. The other question I have is, I notice there's a lot of kids that don't take these tests.
Which ones?
In different schools. Like, last time, we had 254 in the middle school that took this 6, 7, and 8, but you have 279 students. Why not the other 25?
You talking about this
Some
time
of-
or last time?
I think that was MEA data.
Is that MEA data or NWA?
Yeah, MEA. MEA?
On the MEA data?
Yeah.
I'd have to look back. I wasn't here when that test was taken last year.
Okay.
I
Oh,
would
is that-
assume some of them are opting out. Parents are allowed to opt out of that, but I'm not
Oh,
sure
they
how many
are?
would have been. On the MEA, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, but it is definitely a funding issue because we are held to that percentage. However, the state has also said that we can allow students to opt out at the same time. So I know.
Wendy.
We can't force them is the thing.
Wendy,
at
you
this
have a
point.
question?
Yeah. It could be.
And then we have one of these other pages. Well, this is under Dwayne. Grades 9 through 11, science.
Gary, just a minute. Wendy, did you have a question for?
Sure.
When this test was given last year, when is this test given through the school year? And how is this test being administered, I'm sorry?
Okay. And we're talking about the MEA?
Yeah, the other.
Yeah, the MEA last year was given in all schools across the state. There's a window the state gives in March, and it's the same window this year.
And is it on the computer?
It is on the computer.
And what makes this different than the news?
It's different because the NUIAs are a nationally normed test that we use locally and use the results locally. The MEA is a state assessment that we are required to give, and the results are given to us through the state. So it's a state-designed test that all students are supposed to take, but there is that opt-out option that the state has been offering.
Do you believe the opt-out number is why these numbers don't correlate?
I do not know. I'd have to look back and see what the records were from last year.
Very difficult. I was able to draw my own conclusions because the numbers that seem to match with the student population.
Are we, is it we're talking about the results that are in there for this one, right? Because I believe that's the NWA from the winter that's in there.
Well, maybe it's the elementary ones that I was discussing. Is there some elementary schools for the MEAs?
Do you guys have MEAs? Yeah. Okay, because those are our winter NWAs from the middle school that are in this one.
Elementary schools, the numbers didn't seem to correlate. And is that because people are not having the children take the tests?
And we have 75 students taken exactly off the state report that we can see, numbers that we have here.
Okay, so then the numbers were given for the students.
But they're last year's population?
Last year, so I went back one grade, so like, I don't know, these numbers are for this year, for the population, for the classrooms?
Yeah, you have to be careful how you look at from year to year because we do get kids that move in, we get kids that move out, we have kids that are taking an alternative assessment called a PAPE. And then you do have a few parents, not as many at the elementary level, that do opt out.
These are our numbers from last year.
Right.
So at Manchester, and I don't have, I think it was 75 students in grades 3, 4, and 5 that took the assessment.
Yeah, the other thing that's frustrating is,
Had 90-something.
yeah, the other thing that's frustrating when you look at the MEA, we took this last March and April, we didn't get the results back until January.
This January?
Yes. That's something the board should be aware of as well. With the NUIAs, we get the results back instantly. As the kids complete the test, we get the results back of how they did.
Yeah, parents should be getting the MEA results about the same time the kids are taking the MEAs again.
Right.
Because of the lag.
Yeah, when you get something home for your children, it'll be
The
last
parent
year's
letters
test.
to distribute from last year,
Year.
and we're preparing our students
To take
for
them now.
testing this year.
Yeah.
We're hoping to get it back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
I can see why you feel
Yeah,
that way.
I totally
You
get
just
it.
think
You should
this
be
is
confused.
last year's numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Gary, did you have a question for?
Yeah, we have
High
the
school?
grades for science. Only 34% were at or above proficiency. That's 2015. And I'm saying to myself, holy mackerel, where are we at today?
Sure, that number is nowhere near where we want it. I know the science department, one of the complications we have at the high school is the sequencing of courses. Right now, we have Earth systems in 9th grade, then biology, then physics, then chemistry. So the science department is looking at those sequencing of courses to see if it will, impact the test scores at all. The students who recently took that test, or took it last year, said that they felt like they weren't as prepared as they could have been because of the sequencing. But I know the science department is looking into that, and Nancy is working with them.
Wow. So it seemed like when I went to school in the old days, ancient years, we got in chemistry in the sophomore year.
Sure, sure.
And physics was right afterwards. That's how that worked in the junior. Wow.
Okay, other questions on any of the reports?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
Make a motion that we resign.
Resign?
And vacate the promise.
Be careful what you
Adjourn.
make a motion for. All those are, yeah.
We're gonna adjourn.
We have to adjourn first. No? All those in favor?
Adjourn?
Yes.
Cool.
All right, we are adjourned.